Hello, my friend. Welcome back to Mr. English Lab, the place where your English grows, one story at a time. Today, it was raining again. Soft drops on the window. The sky looked heavy, almost tired, like Emma. She sat on the edge of her bed, watching the gray morning through her window. Her alarm had already rung 3 times. The room felt cold. The world felt quiet. And Emma, she didn't want to move. Have you ever had that kind of morning? When you wake up, but your heart feels heavy. When everything feels like too much, even getting out of bed. That was Emma today. She worked in a small office, doing a job that once felt exciting. Now, it just felt like a routine, same faces, same computer screen, same polite smile. She was 27, but she felt older. Tired. Lost. And somewhere deep inside, she wondered, when did I stop feeling happy? She looked at her phone. Another message from her friend, Mia. Cheer up, Em. The sun will shine soon, son. Emma smiled for a second, but it was a sad smile. Because she didn't believe that right now. The sun felt far away. Positivity? That was just a word she heard in YouTube videos, not something real. Still, she whispered to herself, okay, Emma. Get up. Just get up. She pushed the blanket away, slowly stood up, and walked to the mirror. Her hair was messy. Her eyes looked tired. And yet, something about that reflection, that moment, made her stop. She looked at herself longer than usual. There was something in her eyes, maybe sadness, but also a small question. Who are you becoming? The mirror didn't answer, but the question stayed. She got dressed, took her umbrella, and left her apartment. The city was full of people rushing under umbrellas, gray sky, gray faces. Cars splashed water on the street. A man shouted for a taxi. Somewhere, a child laughed. That laughter sounded like light in the dark rain. Emma noticed it. She didn't smile yet, but she noticed. That tiny sound reminded her of something, that not everything was dark. Maybe there was still some color in the world. Maybe she had just stopped seeing it. As she walked, her shoes made soft sounds in the puddles. She passed a small flower shop on the corner, the same one she walked by every day but never looked at. Today, she stopped. The flowers were fresh, bright, alive, like tiny pieces of sunlight standing bravely against the rain. The old lady inside smiled at her through the glass. It was such a small thing, but it felt warm. Emma almost walked away, but something made her turn back. She opened the door. The little bell above the door made a soft sound, ding. The air smelled like roses and morning dew. The old lady said, "Good morning, dear. You look like you need a little sunshine." Emma laughed softly. "Maybe I do." "Take this," the lady said, giving her a small yellow flower. "Free. For your day." Emma blinked. "Oh, thank you." "Sometimes," said the lady, "a small flower can change how you see the rain." Emma didn't fully understand why those words hit her, but she felt something move inside her chest. A small, quiet warmth. She left the shop holding that yellow flower. And for the first time that morning, she looked up at the sky, even though it was still raining. The gray didn't look so heavy anymore. That small flower didn't change her life, not yet. But it planted something deep inside her. A little seed of hope. And she didn't know it then, but that seed would grow, slowly, into something beautiful. The next morning, Emma woke up before her alarm. It was still dark outside. The rain had stopped, but the world felt quiet, too quiet. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. That little yellow flower was on her nightstand, beside her phone. It looked small and soft in the dim light. She smiled at it, just a little. It was strange how something so small could bring a feeling of calm. But the moment she picked up her phone, her calm disappeared. Emails. Deadlines. Messages. The day had already begun, even before she left her bed. She sighed. Okay, here we go again. Emma made coffee, got ready, and stepped outside. The air was cold but clean. The streets were wet, shining with the reflection of streetlights. She walked fast, her mind already full of thoughts. Work, bills, people. Everything felt like too much. At the office, people greeted her, "Morning, Emma." But their voices felt far away. She smiled politely, said hello, and sat down at her desk. Same computer, same chair, same tired feeling. She opened her email. More work, more messages, more pressure. And suddenly, her chest felt heavy again. She thought about that flower on her nightstand. The old lady's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes, a small flower can change how you see the rain. Emma whispered to herself, change how I see it. But how could she see things differently when everything around her stayed the same? Her boss called her name. Emma, can you finish this report by lunch? Yes, sure. Her voice was soft. She felt like she was shrinking, smaller and smaller. All morning, she worked silently. Her fingers moved fast on the keyboard, but her thoughts moved faster, too fast. What if I fail again? What if I'm not good enough? What if people think I'm lazy? Those thoughts were like rain clouds in her head. They followed her everywhere. Even during lunch, when others laughed and talked, she sat quietly with her sandwich, pretending to smile. Her friend Mia came over and sat beside her. Hey, Em. You okay? Emma nodded quickly. Yeah, I'm fine. But she wasn't. And Mia could see that. You know, Mia said, you don't always have to be okay. Emma looked at her, surprised. What do you mean? I mean, it's okay to feel tired. It's okay to feel lost. But don't let that feeling decide your whole story. Emma smiled weakly. Yeah, maybe. But she didn't really believe it, not yet. After work, she took the long way home. She didn't want to be around people. She wanted silence. She walked through the park, where puddles still reflected the gray sky. Children were playing, splashing water, laughing loudly. She stopped and watched them. Something about their laughter reminded her of herself, years ago, when she was younger, when life felt lighter. When she used to dream big. She whispered to herself, where did that version of me go? She sat on a bench and looked up. The sky was clearing. A few soft rays of sunlight touched her face. It was warm. And in that warm light, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, peace, even if only for a moment. She closed her eyes. She took a slow breath. And she thought, maybe I can start again. Maybe I can learn to feel good again. That thought was small, like a whisper, but it stayed. When she reached home, she looked at the flower again. It was beginning to fade, its yellow petals turning soft and dry. Still, it was beautiful. Emma sat down at her desk and opened her notebook. She wrote one simple sentence. Today, I want to learn how to see good things again. Then she stared at those words for a long time. They looked strange, but also strong, like a promise. She didn't know where to start. But she had taken the first small step. That night, she slept early. And before she closed her eyes, she whispered, tomorrow, I'll try again. Trying again, that was something new for Emma. And soon, she would learn that every big change begins with a very small step. A single thought. A single word. A single moment when you decide, I won't give up. Tomorrow would bring that moment. And it would come in the most unexpected way. The next morning, the sunlight touched her face before the alarm rang. It felt soft and warm. She opened her eyes slowly and blinked. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel heavy. She didn't feel excited either, just calm. And that was already something new. The yellow flower was still on the table. It looked older now, its petals dry and quiet, but still beautiful in its own way. Emma smiled at it. "Good morning, little sunshine," she whispered. She didn't know why she said that. It just came out naturally, and it made her laugh a little. The sound of her own laughter felt strange, like hearing a song she hadn't listened to in years. As she made coffee, she decided to play some soft music. Usually, she liked silence, but today, she wanted something different. Something light. A simple song filled her apartment, and the morning suddenly felt alive. She looked around and noticed small things she had never really seen before: the green plant by the window, the smell of toast, the golden light on the wall. It wasn't that her life had changed overnight, no. But her eyes were starting to change. She whispered, maybe the good things were always here. I just wasn't looking. On her way to work, she saw the flower shop again. The old lady waved from inside. "Morning, dear." Emma smiled and waved back. This time, she stopped for a second, not to buy anything, just to say hello. "How was the flower?" the lady asked. "It's still with me," Emma said softly. "I think it made me see things a little differently." The lady smiled. "That's good. Remember, dear, it's not about waiting for sunshine. It's about learning to shine even when it rains." Emma's heart felt warm. She thanked her and walked away. And as she walked, she realized something: her steps were lighter. At the office, she noticed her coworkers chatting and laughing near the coffee machine. Normally, she stayed at her desk, pretending to be busy. But today, she walked over. "Hey," she said, smiling shyly. "What are you guys talking about?" Her coworker Ben looked surprised, then grinned. "Just silly things. Join us." And for the first time in a long while, Emma joined. She laughed a real, happy laugh. She didn't think about her worries. She didn't think about being perfect. She just was. Later that day, when her boss gave her another task, she felt a familiar pressure rising inside, the old stress. But instead of panicking, she paused. She took a deep breath. Then she said quietly to herself, "I can handle this. One thing at a time." Those words felt strange at first. But they helped. They really helped. She started working, one small step after another. And she noticed, when she focused on what she could do instead of what she couldn't, her day went smoother. At lunch, Mia sat beside her again. "You look different today," Mia said. Emma smiled. "Different how?" "Lighter. Happier. Like the sun found you again." Emma laughed. "Well, maybe I found it first." They both laughed quietly, and the sound felt full of life. When she got home that evening, she opened her notebook again. She looked at yesterday's sentence. "Today, I want to learn how to see good things again." Below it, she wrote a new line. "Today, I saw the good." Then she added one more. It was small, but it was there. She looked at those words and felt something new: pride. Not big pride. Not loud. Just a soft, gentle kind. She made a cup of tea and sat by the window. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars fallen on the ground. Cars moved slowly, people hurried home, and somewhere far away, she could hear laughter. She held her cup and whispered, maybe life isn't about waiting for everything to be perfect. Maybe it's about learning to see beauty even when it's not. She felt calm, peaceful, still human, still imperfect, but hopeful. And that hope, though small, started to grow. Like the flower had planted its seed inside her. That night, before sleeping, she said softly, "Thank you, little flower. Thank you for teaching me how to see." Sometimes, change begins quietly, so quietly that we don't even notice it at first. But soon, Emma would face something that would test this new light inside her. Would her new hope survive when things got hard again? Tomorrow would bring that test. And it would begin with a mirror. The mirror talk. The morning light entered Emma's room slowly, touching the walls with soft gold. She stood in front of her mirror, her hair still messy, eyes half awake. She held her toothbrush in one hand, but she wasn't brushing. She was just looking at her reflection, looking at the person she used to ignore. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then she smiled softly and whispered, "Hey, you." Her own voice in the quiet room made her laugh. It felt silly, talking to herself like that. But also, it felt new. She remembered something she once read online. If you talk to your plants, they grow better. So imagine what can happen when you talk kindly to yourself. That thought stayed with her. She looked at her reflection again, at the tired eyes, the faint smile. And she said slowly, clearly, like she was practicing English, "I'm still here. I'm still trying. And that's enough for today." The words were soft, but they felt strong. They sounded true. She felt a small warmth spread inside her, not from pride, but from acceptance. For the first time, she wasn't fighting herself. She was listening. Then she added, "I'm learning to see good things. And I'm proud of that." Her reflection didn't answer, of course, but somehow she felt seen. Not by anyone else, but by herself. As she got ready for work, she kept repeating small phrases under her breath. "I can handle this. I'm growing. I'm not perfect, but I'm better than before." It felt like a new kind of practice, not just English practice, but emotional practice. She was training her heart to believe her words. At work, things weren't perfect. Her boss looked stressed. A coworker complained about something again. And the office printer, as always, stopped working right when she needed it. Old Emma would have sighed and said, "Why does this always happen to me?" But today, she caught herself. She took a deep breath, smiled a little, and said quietly, "Okay, let's fix this. It's just a printer." It was such a small sentence, but it changed everything. Her voice didn't sound defeated anymore. It sounded calm. She fixed the printer. Then she returned to her desk and whispered to herself, "See? You did it." That tiny self-congratulation felt strange, but nice. Mia walked by and noticed Emma's smile. "What's up? You look happy about something." Emma laughed. "I just talked to my printer." Mia blinked. "You what?" Emma smiled wider. "Never mind." It listened. They both laughed. That evening, Emma came home feeling lighter. She stood in front of her mirror again. Same mirror. Same face. But something inside had changed. She looked at her reflection and said softly, "Today was a good day. Not perfect, but good." Then she added, "Thank you for trying." She didn't know why that sentence made her eyes wet. Maybe because no one had said those words to her in a long time, not even herself. She placed her hand on the mirror, as if touching her reflection, and whispered, "I forgive you for being hard on yourself." Her reflection smiled back. And in that smile, she saw peace. The next few days, this became her morning habit. Every morning, before leaving for work, she looked into the mirror and spoke kindly to herself, slow, simple English sentences like, "I am strong. I am learning. I am becoming kinder. I am enough." At first, it felt awkward. But slowly, it started to feel like truth. And her words began to change her days. One morning, while she was speaking her daily mirror lines, she noticed something else. Her English was becoming smoother too. Her pronunciation clearer. Her confidence stronger. Not just in speaking English, but in speaking life. She laughed and said, "Wow, maybe positivity is also good English practice." And it was true. Because every time she said kind, clear, confident words, she trained both her language and her heart. That evening, she met Mia for dinner. They talked, laughed, shared stories. Mia said, "You know, you're glowing lately. What's your secret?" Emma smiled. "I talk to myself." Mia raised her eyebrows. "Seriously?" Emma nodded. "Yes. Every morning. In English." Mia laughed. "That's actually amazing. Emma said softly, "It helps me believe in myself again. Words are powerful. When I say good things, I feel good things." Mia looked thoughtful. "Maybe I should try that too." "You should," Emma said warmly. "Start with one sentence. Just one." That night, before sleeping, Emma wrote in her notebook again, "Today, I talked to myself kindly." And I listened. She stared at the page, smiling. The yellow flower was now completely dry, but she didn't throw it away. She pressed it gently between 2 pages of her notebook. A memory. A reminder. Because that flower was where it all began. Emma was growing slowly, beautifully, like sunlight finding its way through clouds. But life, as always, had more lessons waiting. And soon, she would learn the hardest one, that staying positive is easy when life is gentle, but the real test comes when everything starts to fall apart again. And that test was coming very soon. The power of focus. A week passed. Then 2. The days began to move gently again, not too fast, not too heavy. Emma started to feel more alive. She still had problems, of course. Her job was still stressful, the world was still loud, and sometimes she still felt tired. But now there was something different about her. She was learning to choose what to focus on. One morning, while she was sitting on the bus, she looked around. People were staring at their phones, some with serious faces, some half asleep. The bus moved slowly through traffic. The air smelled like coffee and rain. She noticed a young boy sitting near the window. He was maybe 8 or 9, looking outside with a big smile. He whispered something to his mother and pointed. There was a rainbow, faint but real, hanging over the gray city. Emma followed his finger and saw it too. A rainbow after all this rain. She smiled. No one else on the bus seemed to notice it. They were all busy scrolling, typing, worrying. And Emma thought, they're all looking down. They don't see the rainbow. She whispered softly, "I want to be like that boy. I want to look up." At work, the day started rough. Her boss had a meeting with her team. Tight deadlines. New tasks. Everyone looked tired. Emma could feel the old stress rising in her chest again. Her hands felt cold, her heart a little fast. She wanted to say something to calm herself, so she repeated quietly in her mind, "Focus on what you can control. Let go of what you can't." She took a deep breath and smiled slightly. No one noticed, but it helped her stay calm. Later, when her coworker complained loudly about everything, "This project is impossible. Nothing ever works here." Emma listened silently. Then she said softly, "Maybe we can find one small thing that does work. Let's start there." Her coworker looked surprised, then smiled weakly. "Yeah, maybe you're right." Emma didn't realize it, but her words were already helping others. Her calm was becoming contagious. During lunch, Emma went outside for a walk. The air was cool, and the sun played between clouds. She walked slowly, breathing deeply. She noticed simple things: the sound of birds on electric wires, the smell of fresh bread from a bakery, the way sunlight touched the leaves. She thought, this is what focus feels like, paying attention to what's real and good right now. She whispered the sentence a few times, like a mantra. Focus on what's real. Focus on what's good. Each time she said it, she felt lighter. That evening, when she returned home, she felt peaceful but tired. She made tea and sat on the floor by the window. Outside, the city lights blinked softly in the distance. She took her notebook and wrote, "Today I learned that I can't control everything, but I can control what I focus on." She looked at the words and smiled. Then she added another line. "When I focus on problems, I feel lost. When I focus on small good things, I find myself." She read those sentences aloud, slowly, clearly, like English practice. Her voice was calm and kind. It felt good to hear herself say them. Then she closed her eyes and imagined all her thoughts as small bubbles in the air, some dark, some bright. The dark ones were fears, worries, and doubts. The bright ones were gratitude, kindness, and love. She pictured herself gently blowing the dark bubbles away, letting them float and disappear. And she whispered, "I choose the bright ones." The next morning, she woke up early. The city was still half asleep. She made her coffee and stood by the window again. She said quietly, "Today, I will focus on what I have, not on what I don't." Then she listed simple things aloud, practicing both gratitude and English. I have a job. I have a home. I have a friend. I have this morning light. I have myself. Each sentence felt like a small victory. Each word was a step toward peace. That day, when something went wrong, and yes, something always does, she didn't fall apart. Her computer froze right before an important meeting. Her boss looked frustrated. Her team was waiting. Old Emma would have panicked. But this Emma closed her eyes for a second and said to herself, "Breathe. Focus on what I can do." She smiled, restarted her computer, and said calmly, "Sorry, everyone. Just a small technical break." Her voice sounded confident, calm. And when the meeting continued, it went smoothly. Afterwards, her boss said, "Good job today, Emma. You handled that well." She smiled. "Thank you." It was a small moment, but it meant a lot. Because she had proven something to herself. Peace is not about a perfect day, it's about a calm mind. That evening, she called Mia. They talked about work, life, small things. Mia said, "You sound different these days. Calmer." Emma laughed softly. "I think I'm learning to focus on the right things." "What do you mean?" "Well," Emma said, "when my thoughts go dark, I bring them back. I remind myself, focus on what's real, not what's scary. Focus on the small good things." Mia smiled through the phone. "You're teaching me now." Emma giggled. "We're all learning, I guess." That night, Emma went to sleep with a quiet heart. The rain started again outside, soft and steady. But this time, she didn't hate it. She listened to the rain like it was music. Because now she knew, the world is full of noise, but you can choose what sound to follow. And she chose peace. Emma had learned the art of focus, how to see the light even in a storm. But the true test of positivity was still waiting. Soon, life would shake her again, suddenly, painfully. And she would have to decide, would she fall back into darkness? Or would she hold on to her new light? The answer would come on the hardest day of her year. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. The kind of day that begins quietly, with no warning of what's to come. Emma woke up early, feeling peaceful. She stretched, smiled, and whispered her morning line in the mirror. "I'm ready for a good day." The air smelled like coffee and rain. Everything felt calm. But sometimes, life tests us when we least expect it. At work, the morning started well. Her boss smiled and said, "Nice presentation yesterday." Her coworkers laughed during coffee break. Even the printer behaved. It was one of those good, easy mornings until her phone buzzed. A message from her landlord. Emergency repair. Rent must be paid early this month. Emma froze. She checked her bank account. Not enough. Her chest tightened. Her mind began to run fast. I just paid my bills. I can't do this now. The old feeling fear crept back in. That familiar cold in her chest. She tried to breathe, to calm herself, but the worry kept growing. She stepped outside, into the hallway, and whispered, "Okay, breathe, Emma. You've learned this. Focus. Don't panic." But her hands were still shaking. She closed her eyes and remembered her own words. Focus on what I can control. So she made a plan, small, simple steps. Call the landlord. Explain. Ask for a few extra days. It wasn't easy, but she did it. And the landlord agreed kindly. All right, no problem. Just pay next week. When she hung up, she felt her body relax. A quiet victory. A reminder that staying calm works better than fear. She smiled weakly and whispered, "Okay, you did it." But the day wasn't done testing her yet. In the afternoon, her boss called her into the office. "Emma, I need to talk to you." His tone was serious. Her heart started to beat faster. He sighed and said, "The company is making changes. We might have to reduce some positions next month. I don't know yet who'll be affected, but I wanted you to be prepared." Her mind went blank. Prepared? How do you prepare to lose your job? She nodded slowly, trying to stay calm. "Thank you for telling me." She left the office quietly and sat at her desk, staring at the computer screen. The words in front of her blurred. She couldn't think. She couldn't smile. All she could hear was that one sentence echoing in her head: "We might have to reduce some positions." For a moment, all her positivity disappeared. All her progress gone. She wanted to cry. She wanted to go home and hide under her blanket. But she didn't. She sat there, hands on the table, breathing slowly. In. Out. And then she whispered softly, "Okay, this is the real test." After work, she walked home alone. The sky was heavy and gray again. Wind moved through the streets, carrying pieces of paper, dust, noise. She walked slowly, her head full of thoughts. What if I lose my job? What will I do? How will I pay the rent? What if everything falls apart again? The thoughts came like waves, one after another. She wanted to stop them, but she couldn't. She felt small again. Scared again. When she reached home, she sat on the floor by the window and cried. Not loudly, just quiet tears. Tired tears. Sometimes positivity means being strong, but sometimes it just means allowing yourself to feel. She let herself cry for a while. Then, slowly, she reached for her notebook. The yellow flower was still pressed inside. Old, dry, fragile, but still there. She looked at it for a long time. And then she whispered, "I'm still here too." She opened a blank page and wrote slowly. "Today was hard. I feel scared. But I'm not giving up." Then she added one more line. "Even when life is dark, I can still look for light." She read those lines aloud, her voice shaking, but still strong. Then she stood up, walked to the mirror, and looked at herself. Her eyes were red, her face pale. She looked tired, but brave. She said softly, "I know you're scared. But you've come so far. You survived bad days before. You can survive this one too." Her reflection looked back, silent but steady. And she smiled weakly. "Tomorrow, I'll try again." That night, sleep didn't come easily. But even in her restless dreams, she kept hearing one sentence, her own voice, calm and quiet. "You can still look for light." When she woke up, the sky outside was pale and cloudy. But she didn't hide under the blanket. She got up, washed her face, stood in front of the mirror again, and whispered, "I'm still here." Then louder, "I'm still here." She smiled. A tired smile, but real. Because sometimes, the greatest act of positivity is simply not giving up. That day, she went to work again. Her boss nodded to her in the hallway. Her coworkers looked busy, worried. But Emma, she stayed calm. She focused on doing her best. On being kind. On staying grateful for what she still had. And slowly, she realized the fear didn't control her anymore. Yes, it was still there, but smaller. Because she had learned how to look beyond it. That evening, she wrote in her notebook again. "Today, I faced fear. But I didn't let it win. I chose peace instead." Then she added one more line. "Positivity is not pretending everything is fine. It's believing that I can make it through, even when it's not." She underlined that sentence twice. Because she knew now that was the truth. Life had tested her, and she had stayed standing. Not perfectly, not without tears, but with courage. And from that day on, something inside her changed deeply. She began to live with a quiet strength, a strength that came not from easy days, but from surviving hard ones. And soon, she would feel that strength turning into something new, a real transformation. The morning after the storm, something felt different. Not outside, the sky was still gray and the air was still cold. But inside Emma, something had shifted. She didn't know exactly what it was. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't excitement. It was something quieter, something stronger. A kind of peace, the kind that comes after crying, after breaking, after finally accepting what is. She got ready for work slowly, calmly. No rush, no panic. Just quiet focus. She walked to the mirror and looked at herself again. Her eyes were still tired, but softer. She whispered, "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep going." Then she smiled, small but real. At work, the atmosphere was heavy. People were whispering about job cuts, promotions, and fears. Some were angry. Some were sad. Some were pretending to be okay. Emma felt all of it, the fear, the tension, the worry. But she didn't let it control her. She had learned something new. When the world feels loud, you can still be quiet inside. She focused on what she could do, her work. She smiled at her team. She helped someone who was behind on a report. She made coffee for a coworker who looked stressed. Tiny things. But each act of kindness made her feel lighter. And that day, for the first time in weeks, she laughed. A real laugh, not forced, not polite, but from the heart. Her friend Sarah looked at her and said, "Emma, you seem different." Emma smiled and said softly, "I think I am." That evening, she went home and sat by the window again. The same place where she had cried. The same window, but a different feeling. She took out her notebook and began to write. "Today, I felt calm even when things were uncertain." Maybe peace doesn't come from control. Maybe it comes from trust. She looked at those words for a long time. And then she added, "I trust that everything will work out, maybe not today, but someday." The next morning, she started a new habit. She called it the 3 morning promises. Every day, she stood in front of the mirror and said 3 simple things. I will be kind today. I will try my best. I will not give up. She said them slowly, clearly, like a song to her own heart. At first, it felt strange. But after a few days, something magical began to happen. Her thoughts started to change. Her energy began to rise. She felt lighter, stronger, and more hopeful. 1 week later, something unexpected happened. Her boss called her again. Emma's heart jumped. She thought it was bad news. But instead, he said, "Emma, thank you for staying calm and supportive during these tough weeks. We decided to keep you on our core team. In fact, we'd like you to take more responsibility if you're interested." Emma blinked. "Really?" He smiled. "Yes. You've shown real strength and positivity. That's rare." Emma left his office in shock. She wanted to laugh, cry, and scream all at once. All those nights she spent worrying. All those mornings she pushed herself to stay calm. It had led to this moment. That evening, she went home, opened her notebook, and wrote, "I didn't just survive. I grew." She closed her eyes and remembered every hard moment, every tear, every fear, every time she almost gave up. And now, standing here, she realized something powerful. Every difficulty had taught her something. Every challenge had made her stronger. Every fear had pushed her closer to courage. The next day, she began helping others at work, people who were still struggling. When she saw someone stressed or worried, she sat beside them and said, "Hey, I know that feeling. But trust me, it gets better." Slowly, She became someone others looked up to, not because she was perfect, but because she was real. One afternoon, she visited her old friend Clara, the one who used to comfort her months ago. They sat in a small cafe, with soft music and the smell of fresh coffee. Clara smiled and said, "You look happy, Emma. It's been a while since I've seen you like this." Emma nodded. "I think I've learned something important," she said. "What's that?" Emma looked out the window at the sunlight playing on the street. Then she said softly, "Positivity isn't about ignoring problems. It's about believing there's a way through them." Clara smiled. "That's beautiful." Emma smiled too. And for the first time, she truly believed her own words. From that day on, Emma's life didn't suddenly become perfect. There were still problems. Some days were still hard. But now she had tools. She had words. She had faith. And every morning, she began her day the same way, standing in front of the mirror, looking at her reflection and saying, "Be kind. Try your best. Don't give up." 3 simple promises. 3 simple truths. And they changed everything. As months passed, Emma noticed other changes too. She started sleeping better. Her energy came back. She felt motivated to walk outside, to meet people, to enjoy life again. She joined a small yoga class on Sundays. She started cooking new recipes. She even painted again, something she hadn't done in years. Her apartment, once silent and gray, now smelled like lavender and sounded like quiet laughter. The walls were the same, but the feeling inside was completely new. Because Emma had changed not outside, but inside. One night, as she looked through her old notebook, she found the very first page, the one with the pressed yellow flower. She smiled. That flower had survived too. Old, fragile, and dry, but still beautiful. Still there. Still golden. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you for reminding me. Even small things can survive storms." She placed the notebook back on the table, made a cup of tea, and stood by the window. The sky was dark but peaceful. The city lights shimmered softly below. And in that quiet moment, she realized she wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. Because she had learned how to find her own light. Her life had changed not because everything became easy, but because she had learned how to stay positive no matter what. And now, as she looked back at her journey, the pain, the lessons, the transformation, she understood something deeper. It was time to reflect. It was Sunday morning. Soft light touched the curtains. The world was quiet, calm, and slow. Emma sat near her window again, the same place where her story had begun, the same window where she had once cried, once hoped, and once smiled. But now everything felt different. There was no fear in her heart, no rush in her breath, only peace. She looked outside, children playing, a dog chasing a ball, a woman watering her plants. It all felt so normal, so simple. And that simplicity, it was beautiful. She took a sip of her tea and opened her notebook, the same one filled with all her thoughts, her fears, and her hopes. Page after page, her handwriting told a story. A story of struggle, of learning, of change. She smiled and whispered softly, "You made it." She began to read from the beginning. The first line still made her heart ache a little. "I feel lost." Then she turned the page. "I'm trying to be positive." Another page. "Today I looked for small good things." Another. "I stayed calm. I survived." And then finally, near the end, "I found peace." Each page was like a step on a long road, and she had walked every single one. She closed her notebook, placed it on her lap, and said quietly, "Maybe life isn't about avoiding pain. Maybe it's about growing through it." The words felt soft but strong. She had learned something that no book or teacher could teach. She had learned it by living. That afternoon, she decided to take a walk. The sun was warm, the streets alive with weekend laughter. She walked slowly, noticing everything: the smell of bread from a bakery, the sound of birds on the wires, the soft wind moving through trees. Months ago, she would have walked fast, lost in thoughts. But now she walked with awareness, present, grateful, alive. She passed a small park and sat on a bench. There were children running, parents talking, and somewhere, music playing faintly from a phone. She closed her eyes and smiled. She thought about everything that had happened: the loneliness, the fear, the moments she had almost given up. But now, instead of sadness, she felt gratitude. Because those hard moments had shaped her. They had taught her patience, strength, and kindness. She whispered to herself, "Thank you, old me, for not giving up." Then she remembered something she once read: the most beautiful flowers grow after the hardest rain. She looked around the park, bright flowers blooming in the dirt, reaching toward the sun. And she realized how true that was, not just for flowers, but for people too. She smiled and said softly, "I guess I bloom too." That evening, she went home and decided to record something for herself, a kind of message, a letter she could listen to whenever she felt low again. She turned on her phone's recorder and spoke in her gentle voice. "Hi, Emma. I know sometimes you'll feel sad again. Sometimes life will be hard again. But remember, you've been through this before, and you made it. You learned how to stay calm, how to breathe, how to believe. So when the next storm comes, don't be afraid. You already have the umbrella inside you, your hope, your courage, your light. You don't need everything to be perfect to be happy. You just need to stay kind, stay thankful, and keep moving forward." She stopped recording and listened. Her own voice sounded strong, peaceful, loving. She smiled and whispered, "Thank you." The next morning, she woke up early again. The sky was pink and gold. Birds were singing outside. She went to her mirror, looked at herself, and smiled. Then, like every day, she said her 3 promises. Be kind. Try your best. Don't give up. But this time, she added one more line, something new. And always believe that light will find you again. She touched the mirror gently and said, "Because it always does." Weeks later, something beautiful happened. Her company started a new wellness program, and her boss asked her to help lead it. The goal was to teach others about positive thinking and stress management. At first, Emma laughed. "Me? Teach positivity?" Her boss smiled. "Yes, you. You live it every day." And that was true. When she stood in front of the group on the first day, she was nervous, her hands a little cold, her heart racing. But when she began to speak, her voice grew calm, steady, warm. She looked at the faces in front of her, tired, worried, just like she once was, and said softly, "I used to think positivity meant being happy all the time. But now I know it's something different. It's about believing you can find hope even on your worst days. It's about being gentle with yourself when life feels heavy. It's about taking one small step, then another, even when you're scared." She saw heads nodding, eyes softening. And she continued, "If you can find one small reason to smile today, that's enough. Because every small light matters." When she finished, the room was quiet for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Then another. And soon, everyone was smiling. Emma stood there, tears in her eyes, but this time, they were happy tears. That night, back home, she sat by her window again. The sky was dark, but she didn't mind. She knew darkness always comes before dawn. She whispered one last time, "Stay kind. Try your best. Don't give up. And always believe light will find you again." Then she smiled. Because she wasn't just saying it. She was living it. Dear listener, if you are listening to this story right now, maybe you are like Emma once was, tired, lost, or afraid. But remember her words. Positivity doesn't mean smiling all the time. It means believing that things can get better even when they're not yet good. It means being gentle with yourself. It means choosing peace over panic, hope over fear, light over darkness. You can practice it, just like Emma did, one day, one word, one breath at a time. And slowly, everything will change. So tonight, before you sleep, say her 3 promises out loud. Be kind. Try your best. Don't give up. And at her last line, the one that carries her whole journey in just a few words. Light will find me again. Because it will. It always does.